Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Now, here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin the news in Jerusalem, as U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, has been holding talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel in a bid to salvage stalling ceasefire efforts and alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says 91 people have been killed while seeking aid in the past day, and 2 people have died of malnutrition. Witkoff's visit comes as U.S. President Donald Trump says the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. Meanwhile, the U.S. says it will impose sanctions on the Palestinian Self-Governance Organization as well as the body that represents it on the international stage. The White House says Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Mike Huckabee will travel into Gaza to inspect the current aid distribution sites and secure a plan to deliver more food and meat with local Gazans.
Special Envoy Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee will be traveling into Gaza to inspect the current distribution sites and secure a plan to deliver more food and meet with local Gazans to hear firsthand about this dire situation on the ground. The Special Envoy and the Ambassador will brief the President immediately after their visit to approve a final plan for food and aid distribution into the region.
The situation in Gaza is forcing a major shift in diplomatic alliance as pressure is mounting on the U.S. to pull back its support for the State of Israel. Canada has become the latest country to join France and the U.K. in announcing plans to recognize a Palestinian state in September if a ceasefire deal is not reached before then. Let's quickly bring in
prosperity, and that's the approach.
Now let's quickly bring in geopolitical analyst Benjamin Akir, who joins us from New York, and also Ejike Okpa will be joining us as a global affairs analyst from Abuja. Now, first of all, let's start with you, sir. First of all, for the first time in decades, the ground is shifting. America's traditional allies are saying yes to a Palestinian state. Is Israel all to blame, or are there other issues?
Thank you for having me. I think this is what could have been expected many years back, because the political objective that Israel has set for itself, it's difficult to achieve. So what they seek is to avoid a two-state solution, and what has happened is that in doing so, they decided to, or they saw that it was in their strategic interest to encourage hardcore Palestinians who reject even the state of Israel in their ideology, and then to weaken the moderate Palestinians who are seeking this two-state solution. So it was in their interest to show that, see, we cannot have a two-state solution with people who want to kill us or with people who are so radical. And so that has been a narrative for a long time, and the West was not quite aware of what was the intention of Israel in the long term. So it has become more obvious now to the Western countries that this war, this problem cannot be solved just by waiting for the two parties to resolve that at the negotiating table. And Israel doesn't even want to come to that negotiating table. If you look back to the last decade, there has not been any progress in the direction of talking to the Palestinian with the objective of establishing a two-state solution. It should now be obvious that that solution can only be imposed by international law, not the result of negotiations where one party, the party that has the upper hand, has no interest in pursuing that.
We are joined by Ejike now. Ejike, you're welcome. I just asked Benjamin regarding the way the allies are shifting. America's traditional allies are now saying yes to Palestine. What do you think about this? Do you think Israel is to blame?
There's enough blame to go around. There's enough, you can look at the UN, you can look at, European Union, you can look at, what US has single-handedly done in the case of the Palestinian and the Israeli people. And you could see a whole lot of fault in what could have been a permanent solution. But those permanent solutions will not be able to take root if the parties that are suffering the devastation haven't come to terms. In any situation like we have in the Palestinian-Israeli situation, there's always the phrase I refer to, opportunity cost. What is Israel willing to give up in order to achieve peace? And what are the Palestinians willing to give up? Because where they are too deep into each other's situation, but until both parties agree. But those parties will not agree because there's international interference. America comes in and proposes something, and then Israel will say we agree to it or we don't agree to it. European Union comes through. There's a lot of pull and push. And those pull and push doesn't favor the two parties that on a daily basis are exposed to the danger that the world witnesses. So they have to come to terms with their own geopolitical existence because they are neighbors. Love thy neighbor. You don't even have to love your neighbor, tolerate your neighbor, but please let me have peace. So I'm hoping, but I don't know what is going to make that peace exist. Because, this is not new. Since 1948, when Israel was smacked in the middle of Palestinian land or whatever, however they claim that this is their own Jewish land, it hasn't given them any peace. So, and that is, a finger to the rest of the world that no diplomacy has brought any solutions, no negotiator has been able to come up with something that everybody can live with until the two parties that are exposed to the danger that we witness on a daily basis are able to say, you know what, I'm going to give up something in order to have a peace of mind.
So, Mr. Ake, come September, what if America is left standing all by itself and everybody else recognizes the state? What will happen then?
Well, if you ask the Palestinians, they will tell you that the recognitions are symbolic, that nothing is going to change substantially. But of course, to Israel, it signals a collapse of their foreign policy on this issue. I still expect that the United States will be standing with Israel, and in fact, they are promising to punish some of the states that are recognizing Palestine, the state of Palestine now. So, but what we do see is a change. There is a change. There is the understanding also in Israel that people like Netanyahu, who have presented them as expert in foreign policy, in the politics of Israel, the moderates have been displaced, and the nationalists and the right wing, they have gained so much power in the last couple of years, and Mr. Netanyahu has presented himself as the only statesman who is capable to go out there and convince foreign countries to treat Israel in a particular way and to advance the interest of Israel in a particular way. So these countries in September recognizing the state of Palestine, it's symbolic, but it's significant at the same time. It is signaling to Israel that the goal that they have in mind. If ever they come close to that goal, the rest of the world will be alarmed and shocked by it, because that goal is to have one Jewish state from west of the River Jordan to the sea. And that is the goal, to avoid by all means possible the idea of a two-state solution. Now, but that is imposing itself now in Israel as a political issue to be debated. So that is a strategic defeat for the nationalists in Israel who have figured out that they could normalize ties with other Arab countries and then just end up with symbolic improvement of the lives of Palestinians without granting sovereignty to them. So that has been the goal in Israel, and I think that's unraveling now because Israel can see that they are suffering strategic defeat in foreign policy. Because significant shifts have now occurred, and the people know that unless they come to a just solution and advance the two-state solution, there is not going to be any peace there. And I think it's the right direction also to go.
Interesting way to put it, strategic defeat in policy. Mr. Ejike, not to go away from what you were trying to say, I hear you where you say both parties are so deep into their grievances that the rest of the world pretty much almost has forgotten exactly what it is, going back into the 1940s. But the question is, how the boundaries of the Palestine state would be defined in 2025, given that so much has changed since between 1948 to 1967 to the present day.
Say that again, because the audio wasn't very clear. So what is your question?
So my question was how the boundaries of Palestine state would be defined in 2025 when we consider how much has changed so far.
But again, this is a boundary dispute. Remember some years ago when Trump was there in office, he recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. There's a whole lot of things that have been injected into this confrontation, and that has thrown both parties off. Every American president has a solution, and then another American president comes in and does something else. It's good to see that the other countries are trying to break away. But again, like the other guest said, it could be a symbolic thing. You don't recognize the state, and they don't give them the sovereign right. If you look at the geography of where the Hamas is and Hezbollah, how do you bring a country to divide a people? Just take the case of Nigeria. Let's say some people come in and put another country in the middle of Nigeria. How are you going to feel? So the geography of Israel, when they were creating this back in 1948, that's when they sowed the seed of discord. And that seed of discord have not been able to, it's like you made a mistake, you don't want to acknowledge it, and you don't want to know how to go back to it. So like I said, let's come to terms. There's always a solution. But the thing is, who is willing to take the solution? Because there's so much pride in it. Strategic defeat. Israel claims to have a whole lot of intelligence. If they do, how come, an unorganized military or a force came in and kidnapped as many people as they did? It's a slap on Israel's intelligence. So now they're trying to save face by being aggressive and doing what the whole world is looking at and saying, this is excessive force, this is excessive punishment. So again, I don't have a solution. I don't have a magic wand. Nobody does. It is a matter between the Palestinians. If they want to do a three-state solution, okay, the Hamas will get their own country, and then the Hezbollah will get their own country. So that way, they become a 2-3 regional government in this tiny piece of land. But it's not going to make sense where you put a country in between two people that have both tribal and family connections, and you restrict their movement. So if you're in the south, you want to go to the north, you have to go through Israel and be subjected to all those kind of requirements and rules. And if you're in the south, you want to go to the Hamas. I mean, who wants to deal with that? So let's just make it a three-party solution, okay? The Hamas, you become a country that is part of the Palestinian, United States, or whatever you want to call it. You have your own separate government, but you have to agree not to interfere or violate your neighbor's rights to do anything. Maybe we need to think about it that way. But two-state solution ain't going to work. It hasn't worked. And anything that is doing is putting a bandage on a festering wound. But it's not healing.
All right then, Mr. Ejike. Mr. Ake, I'm going to ask the two of you this question. Now, seeing as Hamas has not yet or has totally refused to release Israeli hostages, what exactly are the prospects of real peace in Gaza?
Well, if it is about the release of the hostages, I think what the Hamas want to do is to make sure that the offensive stops. They want the war to end. I think this is one of the conditions that they're trying to secure, because to them it's strategic survival. And then Israel, on the other hand, will never be satisfied with any ceasefire that requires them to stop the military operation, because they have told them that they have told themselves that the objective of the operation, which was not properly conceived in the first place, because they could never achieve the goal of destroying Hamas. It's an ideology, and it can really not be destroyed. Okay. So Israel is in quest of an impossible mission.
Okay.
And then Hamas, on the other hand, I think they are negotiators. As long as it provides them some relief to continue their operation as a force within Gaza, I think it will be possible to get some of the hostages But again, that's difficult to see.
Okay, then.
That's the situation right now that we find ourselves in. There's going to be a ceasefire because the UK has conditioned its recognition of the state of Palestine on the ceasefire. We should expect some kind of symbolic ceasefire, which will be geared towards making sure that the UK doesn't join Canada and France.
All right, then. All right, Mr. Ake.
It would be a shock.
Mr. Ake, let me let Mr. Okpa here give his final take regarding this. No hostage release. What are the prospects of peace? And please be summary because we have run out of time, Mr. Okpa.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a case of holding the ace card. So what the Palestinians have done is like, hey, you know, you got to have to meet us somewhere. And until you meet us somewhere where we're comfortable and we walk away with this, you know, on a win-win situation, not a winner-loser situation, we're not gonna release the hostage. Again, remember, Israel has a lot of pride, and the reason Israel has been able to do what Israel has done is because of America. It's not because of Canada. It's not because of the UK. All of these other people are just, you know, toothless barking dogs. They don't bite. They have nothing to bite on. But they're just going to step on the world stage and make it look like they have substance. Until the United States of America comes to terms and say, we are going to withdraw our support for Israel, which will be hard to do. It's like a case of, you know, trying to pull teeth with a toothpick. You know, commendable effort, nothing gets pulled. So we got to get down to what really is going to make a difference. You know, it is a slap on the world leadership. It's a slap on all the various parties that are interested in a peace that we haven't been able to figure out. The lasting peace is 1948 when this conflict started. So again, what are they willing to give up? Opportunity cost is a term that is used in economics. What are you willing to give up or what you want to get?
All right, then,
Until that factor is recognized and that, you know, and accepted as a negotiating tool, nothing is going to happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benjamin, Mr. Ejigokpa. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Let's take a break now. When we return, 44 dead, 9 still missing as flooding hits China. Details in a moment. Welcome back. Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun on Thursday stated the country is determined to disarm Hezbollah a day after the militia group's chief claimed these calls were serving Israeli interests. In a speech marking Army Day, Aoun said it is the duty of all political parties to ensure the Lebanese army and security forces hold a monopoly on weapons across the nation's territory. Aoun also stated that this step is crucial for Lebanon to regain world confidence and defend its sovereignty. The president's remarks comes as Lebanon faces heavy pressure, particularly from the United States, to disarm the Iran-backed group.
سلطة الدولة اللبنانية على كافة أراضيها وسحب سلاح جميع القوى المسلحة ومن ضمنها حزب الله وتسليمه إلى الجيش اللبناني.
Now to Eastern Europe, where Ukrainian officials are reporting that no fewer than 9 people, including a 6-year-old boy, were killed and more than 120 injured in a massive Russian missile and drone attack on Kiev overnight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Moscow launched more than 300 drones and 8 missiles in the attack, which targeted several regions, but with Kiev as the main focus. The Russian strike, which destroyed part of an apartment block in the Ukrainian capital and damaged one of Kiev's mosques, came just 2 days after U.S. President Donald Trump set a 10-day deadline for Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire or face new sanctions.
Вночі Україна знову була обстріляна спочатку дроновою атакою, потім ракетною атакою. Місто Київ постраждав найбільше сьогодні. Після широкої атаки дронів через годину були пуски ракет. 6 ракет, які попали по об'єктам.
The European Commission says Ukraine's parliament has addressed key concerns over the independence of anti-corruption agencies by passing a new law to restore safeguards for NABU and SAPO. This comes after a controversial bill that had briefly placed them under the Prosecutors General's control sparked public outrage and international concern. European Commission spokesperson Guillaume Mercier confirmed the radar had restored key safeguards and addressed Brussels' key challenges over institutional autonomy.
This vote, which has taken place just a few minutes ago in the Rada. So the Rada has restored key safeguards ensuring the independence of the anti-corruption bodies. In our view, the new law addresses the key challenges of NABU and SAPO's independence. We will, however, need to check the final text as it has just been adopted. Let me, however, underline that this is not the end of the process. Ukraine accession will require continuous efforts to guarantee a strong capacity to combat corruption and to respect.
Now, China on Thursday recorded a total of 44 people killed and 9 persons still missing after a heavy rain disaster across the capital, Beijing, last week. Among these deaths, 31 took place at an elderly care center in the town of Taishitun in the northeast of the city. Also, those still missing are local officials working on search and rescue. Between July 23rd and 29th, Beijing has suffered extreme rainfall, and this has caused significant casualties. Swaths of northern China have endured deadly rains and floods since last week, forcing the evacuation of thousands of people.
这次灾害损失大，伤亡多。 我们深感痛心和自责，深刻反思应对本轮强降雨，我们的工作还有不足，在树立底线思维和极限思维方面还有差距，对极端天气的预报预警能力不足，防灾减灾预案编制的不够完善。
Hundreds to thousands marched from the University of El Salvador to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the July 13, 1975 students' massacre that occurred in San Salvador. On July 30, 1975, security forces opened fire into a peaceful protest, killing at least 50 students, plus many wounded and disappeared. This year's ceremony featured banners, simulated scenes at the bridge, vigils, and calls for justice. Survivor groups are demanding reopening investigations into the killings, which none of the officers involved have ever been charged.
Hoy nosotros, en reconocimiento a la memoria de esos compañeros y compañeras, estamos aquí reclamando justicia y, por supuesto, mostrándole a las nuevas generaciones la necesidad de no olvidar ese hecho fatídico que enlutó a la familia salvadoreña.
Reivindicarlos y a la vez hacer recuerdo a la población de que no se debe de tolerar este tipo de actos y cualquier parecido que hay en la actualidad también se debe de condenar. Una dictadura no solo significa que un militar gobierne, una dictadura comienza desde que no hay equilibrio en los 3 poderes del Estado.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent this evening. Now remember, you may send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on your screens now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.